be the one to break it to you, but sex education of the past failed us. Because birds and bees, they don't fuck. Welcome to Birds and Bees Don't Fuck, a show where we learn exactly how bad our formative sex education, or lack thereof, really was. I'm your host, Arielle. I'm an intimacy coordinator and sexologist. My guest today is a strategic brand consultant for kinky brands. Welcome to the show, Layla Paul.
So good to be here. Hello, hello.
Hi, it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
For all the conversations that we have on this show about how sex educators and brands and workers and everybody is just completely shadow banned, I love that that's your focus, is on helping these brands not be shunned and shadowed in the world and just figure out how to show up.
Loud and proud. I love it too. So I am a strategic brand consultant, as you mentioned, and I have traditionally done so for the, I would say, vanilla crowd and services. And it is so nice to really be out and out of the shadows and proudly serving this community.
And I love that you use the word out too, because that's such a valid thing. I come from traditional advertising and production as well. And so, I've got 20 years under my belt of doing that stuff. And regardless of what you come from, there is a coming out when you start working in sexuality in any way. If you're going to talk about it, if you're going to share your body as art, if you're whatever you're doing, there is that period of coming out. So I love that you use that language.
Yeah, it was so fun to create this. And even, my own Instagram page where now I can follow all the brands I've been wanting to follow, but I couldn't with my vanilla profile and, with kids or whatnot. And it's just the best. I love scrolling through my feed right now.
Yeah, it is really fun when the algorithm really starts working for you. I actually saw an ad this morning and it was for earbuds, but the silicone looked like it was a pleasure product and
Nice.
the curve of it looked like it was kind of similar to like a Wii vibe where it has the
Yeah.
clitoral stimulator and the G-spot stimulator, but it was
Yes.
really small. And I was like, what is this thing? What are they advertising? And then I was like, oh, it's an earbud. It's not a sex toy. So I'm
But
just wired.
if it can do double duty, I'm all about that.
It's so true. And that's the thing with pleasure products. And I use pleasure products instead of sex toys because, we're the pleasure, you can find so many different ways to have pleasure with these products. And I think that's the point, is that like you have this one product that's made for XYZ, but how can you use it in a different way? What else can it bring to you in terms of pleasure? Where else on your body can you use it? What are the weird, like, how can we get weird and creative with this stuff? Sidebar.
I'm all about double duty, and in a pinch, I've certainly used some interesting things.
Yeah. Well, and also if you think about it, when you're growing up and experimenting and you don't have access to actual toys and actual products that are built for your body, that are built for pleasure, you do experiment. At least I did. I know that
Of
me
course.
growing up, I was like, what's this do? What's that do? What's this thing?
Right.
So
And if I use this over the clothes, it still might work. And under the
yeah.
clothes, of course, a little different. So yeah, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, that flexibility and creativity is just so important in the bedroom. I mean, everywhere for sure, but it's like we get into a sexual situation and the creativity for some reason, well, shame and guilt and fear, it just goes
Yeah.
out the window.
Right.
And so, how did you make the transition from traditional advertising, which I think you're still working with traditional brands,
Absolutely.
into kinky brands?
Truthfully, I will say I became an empty nester. And
Mhm.
it took that kind of freedom to let myself really expand into that market more comfortably. And like I said, out and proud. I certainly had side clients or so forth that found me through FetLife or through other venues that I'm a part of, Tantra specifically as well. And actually, I'm coming up with the Tantra brands as well. Um,
Yeah.
but that niche marketing is always what I've told my clients to do. And I have never honored that part of me to do that as well for myself. I was more of a broad brush brander before, and so having this niche for me was really a relatively new thing, so that I could really honor that part of me and be more out and available to those types of clients.
It's so interesting how so often the things that we are supporting other people with are the things that we're just like not doing ourselves.
I know, I know.
It it
It
comes
is
up for
true.
all of us.
It
It's
is
like,
true.
yeah, yeah. It's like, well, you got to take your own medicine, girl.
It's true. It is true, and it has really been a huge refreshing sigh of relief for me. And with one client in specific is in the adult entertainment industry as well as virtual reality, and so it's just so fun to talk about pornography and all the types of things that again that I've given up from my business side of life, and it's just been really fun.
Yeah, there's a level of refresh. I don't know what word I'm trying to say here, but there's a
Refreshment.
level refreshment. Yes, thank you. There's a level of refreshment that exists when we can just completely stand in who we are in all of the aspects. Not saying that if you're a kinky person, you need to bring that into your law practice. That's
Mhm.
not what we're saying here. But when we are in an industry, like again, I come from film industry and I was a producer and a first AD for decades, and now I'm an intimacy coordinator. So, and
Mhm.
that's the fact that I can have conversations about which sex toy to use, which dildo do we need to use for a prosthetic, or how to get the right angle for doggy style that's going to honor the actors' boundaries in terms of how they want their bodies positioned, like all of these challenging things, and having these conversations in a really safe, open space is it really it changes who you are in everything. I think when you're able to really just embrace, like, yeah, I work in sexuality, I work
Mhm.
in kink, this is what I
Yep.
do. Yeah, it's what I do on my own, or maybe not, or whatever. But I think those of us who are inclined to actually do this work, once we're able to step into it, there's a huge sigh of relief.
Yeah. And I'm you know obviously I look very traditional, and it's just I think entering even just the kink community or any of the other types of communities I'm a part of, that you don't have to look a certain way to be that way. And I think that, some folks are like, oh, well, she or he looks like this, so they must be like this. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually have more to yourself than what might meet the eye.
Yeah, and that's such a fun thing about the kink community, is that you have people from all walks of life. I mean, I
Hmm.
I work at play parties and I attend play parties, and they're people that you would never in a million years think are going to be doing puppy play, but there they are, being a cute
Yep,
little puppy.
exactly.
Being spanked by their mistress. It's great. I mean, the assumptions when it comes to the kink community, they really go out the window. I mean, it is a world where people can be truly, truly as free as they desire, so long as they're not causing harm to self or others. And I think that
Correct.
it's just such a beautiful community to be a part of.
Right. So,
And so what was that like for you? So actually, no, I want to back up, because something that I think that we don't talk about a lot or enough is the transition that happens for mothers. And we don't have to go to whatever you feel
mhm,
comfortable with.
sure.
But there's a transition for mothers first, for people who become mothers. So like there's that first identity shift when you go from, woman to mother, or person to mother. And then there's the second shift when your kids leave the house. And now and we don't talk about that enough. That is an identity shift that, I mean, primarily because we just don't give space for women to have their experiences. But I would love to kind of talk about that a little bit and give some space for that identity shift.
Thank you. Well, it definitely is a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I love it. And it just, I was a single mom for most of my parenting. So I had to be very creative and stealthy around having the freedom to express myself in all of my different communities because time was so limited. And
Mm.
now that I have more space and time to explore, I am having so much fun. Just in terms of being truly self-expressed in even just my own bedroom, because if you have a couple of kids on either side of your bedroom, I mean, that's it is what it is. But also just the time and space to do weekend trips and Tantra festivals and, parties that we have and that we attend. I'm engaged now. So
Ooh, fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's just so wonderful to, I mean, really feel like me. Again, I mean, I've always felt like me, thankfully, but just even more like me.
Yeah. What do you think has been one of the biggest things to help you with that transition and really stepping into yourself as your kids were moving out and growing up and moving into themselves as their own, younger adults and finding their identities?
I think, truthfully, not losing that part of me throughout those years, that
Yes.
I always was able to, I have my own studio, I have my own space. I was able to see clients and friends and other types of folks, that are, um, in that lifestyle with me to have that closed up space, if you will, that private space. And so I wasn't shutting down that person, that persona. I was able to still keep that with me. And now, that again, that there are more hours and time in the day and in the month, I have obviously more time and spaciousness, but I've never like taken my finger off the pulse of that. So again, I'm doing more activity, but I still, I didn't take a time up, take a break, if you will.
Yeah, and that is really, really important and really hard. So I've worked with a lot of mothers over the years, and that is one of the hardest things is to get them to take care of themselves, to
Hmm.
have that space and time to explore pleasure and it doesn't have to mean sexual pleasure. Like even
Hmm.
just to go I have I've had clients where I've had to have uh, do a lot of work around just getting them to go to a yoga class, just
Oh, right.
giving themselves that 1 hour. Because when we do forego our identity and when we do forego the things that are filling us up, it's a lot harder to maintain being a mom and maintain working and maintain a home and maintain everything you have to do.
True. And I also work with a lot of women. This is something that is on the outside of my agency life, but I do yoni and lingam massage. And so working with the women in my client base, there's so much built up. They have just held on so tightly to
Mm.
themselves. And like I said, they weren't able to let go of whatever traumas, let go of just the layers and layers and layers of womanhood. And that is so beautiful and sometimes tragic just to see that shedding of expression. It's intense. It's very intense.
Yeah, it is really intense work. And just for the listeners, can you explain what those two words were?
Sure. So they're Sanskrit words. Yoni is the female, and lingam is the male. And yoni is there's an entrance to the womanhood, and the lingam is on the outside of the body, and it is the penis.
Yeah, and I love that. This so I when people use the word yoni for a long time for me personally,
Hmm.
it's been a little bit triggering. So I come from the health coaching world.
Okay.
Um, so I've been in that world for a very long time, and you see a lot of appropriation. You see a lot of like inauthentic woo woo authenticity. I've
Hmm.
seen a lot of bad stuff over the years. I've seen a lot of
For
fakeness over the
sure.
years, a lot of stuff.
Right.
Um, but what I do love about the word and how I came to love the word is because, as far as I'm aware, the word yoni is the only word in any language that encompasses both the outside and the inside of the vulva and vagina. I don't think that there's
Hmm.
actually another word in any other language for the entire complex. Because
Hmm.
even for us in
Right.
English, we have the inside and the outside. And so
Right.
now,
Vagina and vulva. Right.
exactly, exactly. But yoni is all of it. So I can even just say, for me personally, in my experience, I still don't refer that to myself, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, well, here is this word that does encompass all of it. And so, what is the healing that needs to be done around it, and how can we honor the Sanskrit language and all of that? So it's like
Hmm.
these things can be so layered in all
Yes,
sorts of
there are.
different ways.
They are. They are for sure. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm trained in yoga too, so I know,
Yes.
and yeah, so
I'm
it's a
I'm
journey.
trained in I'm trained in yoga as well, and I learned about the yoni after my yoga teacher training. I did not know that word or that that expression for the vulva vagina, and it is. I don't have a triggering connection with it, but I feel like it is a very loving, encompassing word for it. Um, so that's what I've chosen to use for this type of work.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it did, so I my experience with the word, which I think, and I'm sharing this because I think a lot of other people have seen this too, would be like
Hmm.
these people on Instagram that were like in a
Hmm.
forest and all like woo woo and blah blah blah. And like, I know you, bitch. That's not who you are. Like, stop pretending. So,
Yeah,
being in the coaching world and being in the yoga world and like seeing how people would present and use these words, and not to
yeah.
say that they would weaponize it, but I'm like, you don't even have a full understanding of what it is that you're doing and what you're saying. And you're like having this fake persona. So, um, and just, I don't get that feeling from you anyway, because
Hmm.
also like you're grounded in working with brands and like
Yeah,
reality. There's like this, there's the duality. And I think that this just also goes to like being a woman in the world today, of this duality idea
yeah.
of, we can be woo woo, but we also have to stay grounded in the world that we live in, and also being
Right.
respectful of where these words come from and all of that. So I don't have a bad relationship with it now
Yeah.
anymore, but I
Good.
always like to share that story because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people hear the word yoni and they can be immediately turned off because they are like, what is this? This is strange. Or again, like you see a woo woo woman in the forest, which is like, good for you, girl. Like, that's your thing. Go do
Yeah.
it. Um, but I really personally like to bring the woo woo down to earth because we live here and we live in this
It's true.
capitalist society. So it's really
Right.
important for us to be like, look at all these tools that are accessible, and how do we utilize this in this world where we
Right
live?
now. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. I
Yeah.
yes, I spent a lovely week in California at a should I name names of what the organization is?
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
If you want to
it,
support them,
it
go for it.
ISTA. Do you know ISTA?
No.
International Sacred Temple Arts. And
Ooh.
again, it is a little, it's bridging on the, running through the forest kind of style. But I as as an East Coaster, I don't know, California and the East Coast definitely are different. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're Californian, you can can understand
I'm a
that.
New
So
Yorker, actually,
oh,
so
you are?
that's where I
Oh,
get
okay, I'm
my
a former New
citizen
Yorker.
from.
So
My cynicism from.
I already was like, where am I?
Yeah, yeah.
I already was like, where am I? And anyway, it was there was a little bit there. I had to kind of balance my integration into the work that I wanted to do, the shamanistic work I wanted to do, with some of the characters that truthfully looked like a little bit like they were dressing up. I'm going to be honest. There was
Yeah.
a little bit of a dress up thing going on, which I didn't quite vibe with. But anyway, no judgment. I just felt a little lost for a moment in terms of the theatricalness of some of the folks.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
this is not listen, this does sound real judgy and fine if you want to take it
yeah,
that way. It's fine. But I think that what we're really talking about is the performativeness of it
yes,
versus
yes,
the groundedness, because it's a
right,
big, big difference to be grounded. And you can tell who's grounded.
yes,
Like, by the way, I fully support running through the forest naked. Like, yes,
right.
let's
That it's a
do
lot of
that.
fun, right? But
It's
like,
fun, it's important, but
let's
it's
actually be
grounding.
naked. But we don't have to wear angel wings while we're doing it.
Yeah, and I'm a performer, so,
Yeah,
like, when I wanna do that, yes, I
yeah,
do, absolutely, like, I've got Isis wings and
yeah,
again, to the point of performative nature, that is a
yeah,
performance, not
yes,
necessarily like I am, whatever. So, I think all of this is to say that when we are being introduced into different areas and working with different practitioners and in some of these spaces, that there's a little bit of just like a hat that we have to wear, a little
yeah,
bit, just to say, like, is this a grounded experience, or am I trying to be that, like, goddess? Because we all
right.
have goddess in us, if you
Oh
choose to
yeah,
use that language and you
yeah,
believe in that. So we all have the divine within us, but we also live here on this earth, and so there is that balance. And so it's really just looking at it through a little bit of a glass of, like,
yeah.
am I really grounded in what I'm doing here? Am I connected to my body? Am I connected to my breath? Am I connected to my yoni? Or am I trying to do this so that I can fit into this mold of this tantric goddess?
Right. And be able to snap pictures of it and put on Instagram later. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And tell me a little bit more about Tantra. That's something that has come up on this podcast before, because I love Tantra, but I would love to hear your experiences and what you want to share.
Sure. So, at its core, it's relatively simple. It's breath, movement, and sound. There's so many different layers, and I feel like even though I've been studying it since 2008, I really am still understanding it myself.
Mm.
I give Tantra um, experiences to clients. I receive Tantra experiences. I share Tantra experiences. So there is an energy exchange. There's ways of connecting with, I'll just start with someone else. There's ways of connecting with someone else that could just be eye gazing. It could be sending energy eye to eye, heart to heart, groin to groin. You can do it in circular patterns. You can do it with lovers. You can do it with people that you're not connected intimately with. And you can also do it with yourself. And it is a very beautiful, expanding experience when you're able to really let yourself sit and experience it and be in the wonder of it. The times that have been most impressionable for me are, really when I can lose myself and just be in the sharing, the giving, the sharing, the giving, the receiving. And I have had euphoric experiences. I've had 45-minute orgasms. Um, um, I've actually had what I would kind of consider, rebirthing experiences. I've seen light. I've felt light. I've it can be very incredible.
Yeah, it is. Tantra is such an incredible practice. I do some of those exercises and tools in the intimacy workshops that I do,
Hmm.
because they are just so powerful. And even like you said, it doesn't have to be somebody that you are intimately or sexually
Hmm.
connected to, but just
Right,
to share space with someone, to share
right.
breath with someone, to share eye gazing with someone is
Hmm.
so powerful, because we don't do that. We
No, it's
don't,
true.
yeah. I mean, looking into someone's eyes can be very, very difficult, especially when I do this type of work and it's not necessarily a specific couples intimacy workshop, but I'm doing
Yeah.
workshops facilitating at events or something like that,
Hmm.
we can't go that deep with the eye gazing because it can be really intense, but
It
it is
can be.
also really powerful. And I mean, I love when I get to do it myself and you're just witnessing another human being.
Oh my gosh, yes. I've even, done it feet apart from someone. I mean,
Mm,
def 3, 4 feet apart from someone. And you can have, tingles. You can have, that sensation of just being, electrified, but
mm.
feet and feet to feet from each other. And
Yeah.
obviously, when you're sitting groin to groin and hugging someone
Mm.
and just experiencing that circular diaphragmatic breath, it's just even more elevating, and then tenfold with a partner.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the essence of sensuality really, right? It's
Hmm.
using your senses, it's slowing it down, it's taking things in, and it's really just tapping into your body and tapping into your breath and tapping into that other person. And it's such a beautiful practice. And to your point of a 45-minute orgasm, let me tell you, you practice some tantra and then you shift into some play and you will have an incredible orgasm
Yeah.
regardless of what your body parts are, but especially if you have a vulva, because it's that warming up, right? Like
Right.
we're really preparing ourselves for receiving.
Right, that opening. The first
Mm,
time I had a Kundalini orgasm, I was a little scared. I'm going to be honest. I really didn't feel like I could stop it. I was just, usually the waves are containable, but it just was this overwhelming flow of motion and movement and sound, and oh, it was intense.
yeah. I was at a play party a little while ago and I went to a Tantra workshop and I was there. I met somebody that night. We were in this Tantra workshop. The Tantra workshop ended. We were in our space. Because we were so connected, right? Like we had gone through this
Mhm.
whole experience and we were so connected. We were just so in that whole, I don't even know what was going on. The sound bath started at some point. Don't even know what was happening, but I do have vague memories of some sound stuff coming around my
Mm.
head. I don't even know. But the gongs started going off and my orgasm started going off and I didn't know what was even happening. I was like, I don't know what's real. I don't know what's happening. I don't even care. Is it the gong? Is it my moans? I don't know. Am I even supposed to be playing in this room right now? I don't care. And it's those types of experiences that we don't often allow ourselves. We don't give ourselves the time and space to have.
Oh gosh, I can relate to that. I think sound is so underenjoyed in our culture. It is
Yeah.
so underenjoyed, and those deep tones of a drum or a gong is foreign to our native culture here for most of
Mhm.
us. And to integrate those tonalities into our bodies, because they do go inside,
Mhm.
and they penetrate. It's so wonderful if you can bring those rich tones into intimate spaces. That is
Oh,
very enriching. Yeah.
yeah, and it is the depth of those tones because we're generally living in this middle tone space. We don't
Right.
necessarily go super duper high unless we're listening to like 1990s Mariah Carey or really, really low, you know?
Yeah.
And I will say that I had a partner for years and he doesn't have a very bassy voice in his day to day. But when we would be intimate or when he would whisper something, or sometimes even when he sings, he had a very deep tone in his voice that literally struck my body. So these tones can come in so
Ooh.
many different ways. Yeah, I know. I mean, even now, still like sometimes hearing his voice, I'm like, or even just thinking about it, I can think about this man's voice and have a shudder
Mm.
down my entire body
I,
because
I
that's
think
what
I
sound
felt
can
it.
do. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that everyone can feel it because, oh my God, just having that bassy whisper in my ear, especially
Mhm.
in the middle of playing, was like,
Yeah.
that would take me over the edge. It would warm me up. It would take me over the edge, all of those things. And again, that comes to a part of sound healing because his voice taps into something that's in my body that
Mhm.
reacts well. And that's essentially what sound healing is. It's all of these tones that are tapping into
Mhm.
different areas of your body. It's fucking magic.
I don't think I could be with someone whose voice I didn't love.
Mm-mm.
You know, I had one date with someone who, and it happened to be on Valentine's Day of all, I don't know why, but anyway, I couldn't do it. You know, everything was seen, you know, everything was right on paper, but the voice just couldn't work for me. And
Yeah.
my fiance's voice, I just love. It just does all the right things all the time.
I love that for you so much.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, there are when we're thinking about partners and partnerships and intimacy and all of that, people tend to have these lists of they have to be this tall and have this type of a job and this thing and that thing. But then when you really look at partnerships that have these deep visceral connections and these connections that last decades and years and have
Hmm.
that loyalty to them regardless of if they're monogamous or
Hmm.
non-monogamous,
Sure.
it is those types of qualities. It's this ability that they have, of course, to prioritize themselves and each other and the
Mm.
relationship and give the focus there and be willing to do the work because it's all work, even if
Oh,
it's
for
a great
sure.
combo.
Of
It's
course,
all
of
work,
course. So much
everybody.
work. So much
Humaning
work.
is hard.
So hard.
Yeah, but
Um,
it is.
but
It's that stuff
it's
too. It's the voice. It's the sexual connection. It's all of it.
yeah, the primal stuff like smell. I mean,
Mm, yeah.
he said to me recently, he said, you know, I just like I had literally done, this was yesterday, I had done tons of yard work, and I was sawing up some wood, and I was dirty. I mean, I had been working hard, and he just was like, and just like, oh, I love the way you smell. And I was like, I haven't showered in 2 days. What are you talking about? And it just, like, both of us just love the way we smell always, you
Hmm.
know, and it doesn't matter what we've been doing. It just, or how many showers we'd had. It is the primal that I think is unexplainable.
Yeah. I had that with that partner also, was like
Hmm.
his smell was like I didn't care. It was just
Yeah.
all of it
Always,
would activate my body. All of it,
always.
everything about
Yeah.
him activated his body, but his personality activated my brain in a bad way.
Okay.
But that happens sometimes too. It cannot
Oh.
just be the body activations, it has to be all of it. But the point is that I think we ignore those pieces of ourselves. We ignore the primal. Again, if we want to talk about like the woo woo to the grounded, it's like we're
Yeah.
too grounded sometimes in the
Sometimes.
job and the religion and the family and
Hmm.
this thing and all of these on paper aspects of a
Hmm.
partner versus integrating that into the primal. So it's like
Hmm.
wherever we're looking, it's so important that we find these balances and we find these
Hmm.
flows. I mean, I want to talk about Tantra, we'll talk about masculine and feminine energy too, because again, it's
Sure.
all about that flow and the give and take.
Yeah, so much flow. Um, so, um, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm someone who asks a lot of questions. I'm going to just receive questions right now.
No, ask questions. This is conversational. Your questions are going to add to the conversation. Go for it.
I should have my own podcast at some point.
There you
Um,
go.
so, how did you get into intimacy coaching in film?
Yeah. So, for all of existence, intimacy coordinators did not exist. And
Hmm.
so, working as an assistant director, it would often fall on any assistant director who cared enough to care about the safety of the performers and giving those extra layers. So, there are pretty much two people that really kind of took on all of the extra labor if there was any extra labor to advocate for the actors. And that would be the assistant directors, because they are the people who shut down the set, who are responsible for safety outside of a safety person, who really manage the set and keep everything flowing. And then there is the costumers, who are most intimately connected to the performers when they're putting on modesty garments, when they're getting robes between takes and everything like that. And so as an assistant director, this was in 2012. I was working on a show, and I was the assistant director who was looking after all of the background actors. And so I come into work one day, and they're like, okay, so we're shooting an orgy today, and you have to
Hmm.
have, here are your 25 background actors, and, set them up in the brothel. And
Hmm.
this was a period piece. It was like all gladiators and stuff like that. So people were mostly scantily clad, but this was nudity, simulation, a prosthetic penis. Like every cast member was there too. So it was a really, really big day. And that was the first time that I coordinated any sort of a sex scene. And I mean, boy, was that huge, huge, huge coordination. So I had to just like really quickly come up with a protocol that's not too far off of what we do today. Um, and just make sure that I had the nudity writers for everybody, make sure that everyone understood what was happening, that they are choosing what they wanted to do and who they wanted to do it with, that we knew what level of nudity they could do, what level of simulation they could do, that the person who was getting the prosthetic done, that was going
Hmm.
through, that the merkins, which are their pubic wigs, were placed on the
Hmm.
people who needed them, like all of this stuff. And so that was really my first foray into like really, really doing it.
Hmm.
And just working over the years with more nudity and sex scenes and stuff like that, I was just always, as an assistant director, taking those extra precautions. And granted, we didn't have the time and space to be having the conversations that we do today and really
Hmm.
breaking things down the way that we do today, but
That's great.
trying to do everything we could, or that I could, to create that safe, clear environment for the performers, that all their needs were taken care of, that consent was there, that they understood what was going on, that the sets were properly closed, all of that. Now it's far more detailed. But I just kind of came into it from that way. And then at the same time, I was getting certified as a holistic health coach. I've been into sexuality since I was a child, listening to Dr. Ruth and
Hmm.
watching Real Sex on
Hmm.
HBO. And I specifically remember a Tantra scene. That's like the image that's
Hmm.
has like been burned in my brain. And actually, I'm just putting this together now. I'm hosting a workshop, a couple's sensual intimacy workshop on the 22nd of May. The 15th of May, and it's in a room that looks really similar to that. So I'm really excited about
Oh,
that. It's going to be
that's
at
great.
Zuladen. It's great. But yeah, so it was really just. It was just kind of these worlds coming together, and
That's
yeah,
magical.
yeah, it's really just
Um,
I was
that
meant to
is
do it.
magical.
Yeah, yeah. And
Is it
so,
mainstream
oh, go
film as
ahead.
well as adult film?
Mhm.
Is it
So I don't do
mainstream
adult
film as
film.
well as adult?
It's all
Okay,
mainstream. Yeah. So I don't do
mainstream.
adult
Yeah.
film. There is a movement for some sort of intimacy coordinating within the adult world. They have a lot of precautions for sure. They have a lot of
Hmm.
protocols when it comes to testing, and the more that we're seeing feminist porn and ethical porn,
Hmm.
the more we're seeing performers really choose who they are performing with versus just being cast together. So we are
Sure.
definitely seeing some changes. I went to the XBiz Awards this year, and I met a producer who he early on just like made his own intimacy coordinator, and he was just like, I think he's a director too, I don't remember, but we were talking about that. So it is an interesting, it's going to be interesting to see over the next 10 years how this role develops. And luckily, more and more people are using intimacy coordinators, because I've done simple kiss scenes where people were like, I was there for like a different day, and they did the
Hmm.
kiss before the deeper intimate day, and they were like, fuck, we really wish you were there. Like,
Right.
it was fine, everything was fine, everyone was great, but like, boy, we really wanted you there. And that's just a
Right.
kiss. It's
Yeah.
awkward for two performers to come together and have such intimacy and sell it.
Right. Oh, I bet. I bet. No, that's I really have just clued in to the your profession, I would say in the last year or so, and I'm so happy to hear that that's really taking off. That's great.
Yeah, and we often don't think about the crew that are there that
Hmm.
have to be witness to, especially in a sexual assault scene, or it doesn't
Hmm.
even have to be anything that traumatic. Like you could have somebody who is maybe very religious and doesn't feel comfortable being in the room during an intimate scene, but because they're a department head, they have to. And if we're not there to support them in, most people will take care of themselves, and their second in command will take over and they'll go in the room and make sure. But not everyone feels that they even have a place to say that. So a lot of the work is also just making sure that we're taking care of crew and giving them the resources and the information that they need to safely do their jobs too, because we're
Oh,
all in this creative space together.
oh, that's great. Great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with Tantra, how did you get into Tantra?
Oh boy. Um, so I have been I was divorced in 2004, and I think with any big separation, you are spending a lot of time going inward, or at least hopefully you're going inward as well. And so I really started with meditation, yoga, and it just continued from there. And Tantra was a really natural kind of next step of expansion. And I think initially it started through breath
Mm,
work, Kundalini, deep, 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 breath work led me into Tantra, which is so breath based, and then some experimentations with partners, and then it was just almost not my whole world, but a lot of my world. And sacred spot massage came in, and then the yoni and the lingam and the other types of connective touch like that.
connective touch.
Yeah.
I love that. And what I
Hmm.
love about lingam massage as well is that we in our society focus so much on a hard penis, but there's
Hmm.
so much pleasure that can be had with a flaccid penis. We need to learn
Absolutely.
to love a flaccid. They're beautiful. They're so squishy and delightful. We love you. We love you.
I
We don't need you to be
I
hard all the time.
and it's interesting to think how much shame some folks have. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not hard." I'm like, "Why are you sorry? Are you
Why?
having yeah, are you having fun?" Yeah. I'm having fun. Are you
Right.
having fun? Yeah,
Yeah.
and the best part of in my opinion, the best part is the frenulum, which is even nice to say. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fun word to say. And I think there is some folks don't even know about their frenulae,
Yeah.
their frenulums.
Friendly
Love
frenulums.
friendly frenulums. Such a good word.
Uh-huh. It's funny, that was actually a pop quiz. I think this episode might air after that one, but that was
Hmm.
a pop quiz question for one of my comedians. What is the
Oh, oh my God.
frenulum?
I would have definitely have gotten that one. It's
Yeah.
definitely a word that has missed most of our lessons in life, but it's a
Oh,
good word.
yeah, definitely. And I also just realized that I still have not asked you where you're from because we've just gone off to the races. So where did you
Of
grow
course.
up?
I grew up in Chicago. Chicago is what's between the bread. I say it's the stuff between the bread that makes the sandwich. So, uh,
Ah,
as an East Coaster and spending a lot of time, my fiance is from California. The coast kind of own the show, but Chicago is pretty awesome too.
I
That's
love
really
that.
where I'm from. And I live in
And what do
Boston
you
now.
remember? Okay. Well, East Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you remember from your sex education, if anything?
So I, nothing, really. Nothing really at all. I was raised by a Midwestern mom who was born in 1933. And, there was absolutely no, even intimacy, no house intimacy, even like no hugging,
Mm,
no cuddles, um, even like using the L word, love, was very rare and just not part of the vocabulary. So kind of austere, if you know what I mean. I do not know how I became the person I am today, because I was an only child, and I really I just I I just blossomed early on, and um, I taught myself. Sometimes friends and I would talk about it. And when I say it, like it could be anything. It could be masturbation or kissing or obviously sex, but just even even just the basics were unavailable with my parents. So I would say absolutely, absolutely nothing from the
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
And then
my stepdad, to his credit, was a little more open about talking about things, at least about his life and like when did he lose his virginity, or who did he have crushes on, or how did he go about the world. So he was a little more open, but certainly nothing very detailed.
yeah. Yeah, it was I mean, even now parents have so much difficulty talking to their kids about sex, but certainly when any of us were growing up was like, I don't want to talk to my kid about that. And it's
Yeah,
also, like just it was improper to talk about those
yeah,
things. I don't know about you, but
yeah.
that was kind of, something that I picked up on for sure. And then what about sex? What about sex? What about school? Did you go to a public school or a private school? Do you remember anything from that?
I went to a private school, and beyond the basic like science lessons, there was really nothing about sexual education. I'm a parent, so I chose to put my kids through this program called Our Whole Lives. It's OWL. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
actually know an
So
educator that works for them.
Okay. So I was trained in I my kids went through that, and then I became a trained OWL facilitator as well for ages I think 12 to 15, or yeah, 12 through 15. Um because mostly about consent. I mean, I think the
Mhm.
whole obviously as the whole topic is important, but I have been so focused on consent I'd say the last decade plus, where really empowering my kids to not only love who they want to love, but be able to take care of themselves and have agency over themselves, create boundaries for themselves, be able to have the languaging to communicate for themselves, and to see my two girls navigate relationships. I mean, one is 20, one is 23. They're just so powerful, and I'm so proud of them. So I think that to me was one of the greatest gifts I could give my kids, truthfully, was the OWL program. I mean, am I think I've been pretty good as a parent for them in terms of communication. I mean, I gave my 16-year-old daughter her first vibrator. I was like, I want you to
Oh,
have
I love
fun.
that. Yeah.
um, and,
Don't pick up random
she
objects
was
like we did.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think I've been appropriate, but also like really encouraging. Um, and years and years and years ago, when they were little, they found my side drawer was unlocked, and they're like, "Mom, we knew about dildos and vibrators, but we had no idea they came in so many shapes and colors and sizes."
All of the varieties. They even come in weird
Yeah.
creatures. Everything you
Yes.
want. Anything you want is
Yes.
possible.
So I mean, I think I don't know, being a single mom myself, I feel like I was definitely maybe more open than sometimes when parents are together. There's the constricting views. One parent might have one and idea, and the other might have the other. So I don't know how that would have landed if I'd stayed married, but I certainly I feel like I did it successfully. My mom, I think she herself was just so locked up that
Yeah.
I don't think it was like she wasn't telling me. I don't think she was feeling it herself. I mean, I think she had a very locked up persona in terms of her own sexual connection.
Yeah, as we so often see with women at
Yeah.
any age, even now, I'm sure, the people that both of us work with, it's the same thing. There's so much pressure to be non-sexual and to be masculine, and there's so much shame around sexuality or being a slut or being sensual or any of those things, when really it's it's so much of a part of who we are, and the integration of who we are as humans is to include all of that stuff. So there's so much work that all of us have to do, regardless of where you are on your journey. I mean, we were just saying that there are things that we work on with other people that we need to work on with ourselves. It's all of it.
Of course. Yeah. And, you know, to, this is an interesting kind of reversal, but, why didn't I come out sooner to this area of work? I didn't want my kids to find out. I didn't want my
Yeah.
ex-husband to find out. I didn't want them to think I was weird or whatnot. I mean, so it's like, an interesting kind of role reversal too, where, you know, kids might hide stuff from their parents, but it's also really hard to be a kinky mom. It's really
Yeah.
hard to be a sexual woman and still hold those boundaries to, the second generation. It's tricky.
It is. And there are, again, so many ways that we hide our sexuality for any number of reasons, for our kids, for our parents, for our jobs, for our
Hmm.
community, whatever it is. When we're in that state of suppression, 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 but then we get into the bedroom, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to be like this wild vixen. Like
Yeah.
it's when we really break it down and think about that, it's like, well, no wonder so many people have problems orgasming, no, or having an orgasm. No
Yes.
wonder so many pelvic floors are locked up like that, which,
Yeah.
by the way, Kegels don't solve everything. So don't just go doing Kegels, because if you're locked up, it's only going to make those muscles worse. So,
Right.
it's when we really start to look at all of the ways that we have to hide these parts of ourselves, as opposed to finding ways of healthy integration, then it's no wonder that we do have so many problems in the bedroom, and it is so hard for us to actually sink in and really experience pleasure. But that's where Tantra comes in.
Yeah, I hear you. I just spent a weekend with, I would consider, two of my best friends. These are friends I made 20 something years ago. One of them I went to college with. I actually dated her in college. And you know, again, like these are friends that I see a couple times a year, let's say. I somehow it came out that I identified my business as an LGBTQ plus business. And my friend was
Mhm.
like, well, how is that? Is it just because you work with LGBTQ plus companies or people who identify as that? I'm like, well, I am. And she was like, what? How is that possible? And I'm like, she's like, you're engaged. I was like, yeah, I'm engaged. I'm also bisexual and
Mhm.
queer and kinky. I mean, just like how could my best friend not know that about me, and it's,
Yeah.
we partition ourselves. And someone who I talk to regularly, she's my child's godmother. I you know i i just, like, I wanted to slap myself, like how could I be so partitioned like that,
Mm.
even me. And I don't consider myself as being shy in any way, but it's it's also the audience. I mean, they aren't necessarily open to hearing about some of that stuff. I started to talk about um, some of the areas that I'm involved in, even just simple things like ethical non-monogamy. My friends couldn't even like listen to it. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting, it's an interesting. Um, I mean, do you lose those friends just because they're not into it? No, but it's also like they're not open to it.
Yeah, and a lot of that sometimes comes down to fear and shame and guilt and misunderstanding, and a lot of their own work on themselves and their own sexuality in order to be able to even receive the information that they're receiving, because
Yeah,
non-monogamy for monogamous people can be very scary.
and threatening.
Queer, yeah,
Yeah,
and threatening, and queerness for a straight person can be very scary, because they're
right.
not in a place where they well, I don't want to say secure, but there's just people have their own work to do, and so it's very difficult to then learn these things about someone else. And there's also, I say this a lot, but it's the like, how dare you have the audacity to live your truth and live out loud and have all, like, how dare you have the audacity for pleasure? And that's
Right.
real. It's really real because all of us struggle in different ways to get to that place, whatever that place means for you, whatever that is for you. But other people are just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I
Yeah.
do.
Yes. And I told her, one of my friends, about a female girlfriend of mine who I've been in relationship with for a year. And she just was floored. She said, "But does your fiance know about her?" I said, "Of course, of course he
Yeah.
knows about her,
Yeah.
and he's okay with that." And I'm like, "But it was like, and he's okay with that?" Like it was just like so
Hmm.
like unfathomable that I could be self-expressed and live so comfortably. I'm like, "Yeah, and he's had sex with her too." Like what?
Yeah.
And and it just couldn't she couldn't put the pieces together. It was too confusing. So yeah.
Yeah, monogamy has taught us a lot of not great things, and it's that scarcity mentality, like,
Right.
as if, and if that were true, if we really were scarce when it comes to sexual and romantic partnerships, how is it that we're not scarce when it comes to non-sexual and non-romantic partnerships? How is it that we can have so many friends and colleagues and acquaintances and people that we play this sport with or go to this activity with, but yet when it comes to intimacy in any which way, platonic or otherwise, that all of a sudden becomes impossible to have more than one person to be intimate with? But then look at these activities that you're doing with other people in all these other different ways. So there's so much
Yeah.
unlearning there when we're looking through that monogamous lens. And I think oftentimes when we can kind of take it out of the sexuality and the intimacy and place it into these other contexts, then it's like, yeah, I guess I do go to dinner with a bunch of different friends, or I guess I do go dancing with other friends. Wait, what? How
Yeah.
dare you? Oh, okay. So we're coming to the part of the show where if you were a comedian, I would be putting you on the spot, but you are a
Okay.
sexpert. So now
Yeah.
you get to just share something that you wish more people knew about. Maybe it's your own version of a pop quiz, just something to leave people with that you want to give us your own little nugget.
Well, about sex in terms of like sex and sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would go back to the Tantra piece actually.
Mm.
And again, to make it more accessible to the everybody. And it could simply be sitting with yourself with one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, sitting in, like just a seated position at whatever's comfortable, and just start to rock yourself and hum. Just doing something as simple as that. And I know that's not sexual, like completely sexual, but just to start to open up your physical body, your using the tone starts to open up the space around you, and almost make you like your own reverberating drum, if you will. And I mean, you can vocalize more, but just even humming and making those circles and holding yourself can be so self intimate, so self satisfying, and so awakening. I think that's a gentle practice that is a good entree or entry to self pleasure. It could be a good practice, as you start to become intimate with someone else. But doing that in water can be also very nice. You can do it
Mm.
in the bath. You can do it, in a stream. But just having water around you is actually very nice to do that.
Mm.
And if you hum enough, you can feel it around you in the water waves as well. I mean, that's
Mm,
a
I
that's a
love
simple it's a
that.
simple practice.
It
Yeah,
is. And I love these practices really are simple. They
yeah,
really are the simplest things that can have the biggest impact. So I love, love, love that
Yeah.
exercise. That's so yummy. And the self humming is like, that is really nice because, as you said, you can feel that reverberation
Yeah.
in your body and in your chest.
Yeah. Another thing you can do, I mean, you can tap on yourself, and you can
Mm,
also tap on someone else. I mean, BDSM is, I mean, there's like with all things, it's there's a spectrum. So
mhm.
I, through the different types of work that I do, I am the giver. I'm the dom.
Yeah.
I'm the dom, and I mean, yes, impact can be hard, but and stingy. But even just, it's called tatami. Even just tapping on someone can just really enliven them. Um,
Hmm.
for someone who isn't even into receiving pain or receiving any type of impact, they can be surprised at how wonderfully stimulating that soft impact can be, just like a cupped hand. So I think that's another thing that people who don't consider themselves BDSM folks can enjoy the impact without any tools.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And where can people find you?
Oh, I have a website. It's kinkybrands.co, just co. And then I'm on Instagram as well, just kinky brands. And that's the best way. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So definitely go find Layla. I have a couple. You can find me at Birds and Bees Don't Fuck. I have a few workshops coming up, and I don't remember when I'm publishing this, so I'm going to tell you about them anyway. So we have on the 15th, I'm doing a sensual couples intimacy workshop, and some of the things that we're talking about are a part of this workshop. So if you are into that, then definitely do come. It's going to be at Zula Den on Wednesday, the 15th. And then a week later, I am doing a sensual movement sound bath. So again, some of the stuff that we were just talking about, like with that movement practice, I'm going to be doing that with Sounds by Seven, Sacred Sounds by Devin. She does these beautiful singing bowls. So we are going to do a little combination sensuality sound bath. It's going to be all about intuitive movement and so much of what we've been talking about today. So I should make sure that this episode comes out before that because it's a great little aperitif to that. But if you like this podcast, please do like it, subscribe it, send this to a friend, send this to a partner if you're interested in getting into Tantra. If you or somebody that you know has a kinky brand or a sexual brand, definitely do share this episode. Layla is definitely here to help with that stuff. And I think that's probably it. So Layla, thank you so much for joining me today. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So nice to meet you. You're a lot of fun.
You too. Bye, everybody.